Fudu is our run-of-the-mill anime protagonist who got expelled from his last school due to fighting in a brawl that broke out there and is now on his way to join the private Aichi Symbiosis Academy. This new boarding academy, however, has its own quirks. First of all, it used to be an all-girls high school, but then later became a co-education institute. We all know what happens when boys are let inside an all-girls school, right? As expected, the girls don't like these perverted and mischievous boys taking over their school, so they form a girls' exclusive group and take over the school's discipline by beating down all the boys and then forcing them to wear makeup if they want to keep studying in the academy. Now, I would have quit if something like that were to happen in my school, but I think not everyone thinks the same. Fudu enters the school and wonders if he will be able to live a life of freedom and quiet in this new academy, but things are already looking bad for him in the background. At the same time, the leading disciplinary group of the school, known as the Supreme Five Swords, led by a girl named Rin, holds a meeting to decide how they will deal with this new transfer student. Rin mentions that Fudu was expelled from his last school because he took down 40 people with his fists while fighting in a massive brawl, and then he was hospitalized. Now, after his release, he is transferring her. They acknowledge that he must be trained in some kind of martial arts, and Rin decides to take care of him herself, as he will be in her class. Just then, the Empress of the Academy, Amu, walks in and she warns Rin about Fudu's spirit bullets and lets her go deal with him. Meanwhile, Fudu encounters some of the boys and one of them warns him to keep his head low or else he will have to face the Supreme Five Swords. He nicknames him Buddha's statue and doesn't pay any attention to the warning and proceeds to go to his new class. But instead of a regular greeting, he is welcomed by Rin and a bunch of other armed girls who pin him to the wall with their swords and say that they will be disciplining him. I don't know about her, but this sure looks more like bullying. Fudu thinks the same and decides that he won't take any of this BS. Rin offers him the choice to coexist with the girls like other boys and wear makeup and act like one, or simply leave the academy. Fudu says no to both these options and says that he is free, so he will live his life as he wants. Rin then points her sword back at him and says that she will then discipline him before the end bell for homeroom rings. He takes her up on this challenge and then looks at the clock, making everyone follow his gaze. Just then, he uses this misdirection to duck down and runs for the window and jumps out. He starts running in the ground as Rin chases after him with her sword. He thinks her to be a bother and keeps running, but Rin tries to strike him and manages to slice his tie in half. Fudu stops and decides to face her, but Rin continues striking him and doesn't give him a chance to strike back. Fudu continues to dodge her strikes, and they both start acknowledging each other's trained bodies and skills. Rin reveals that she fights using the sword style of the KSJ school called mirrored breathing. I'm sure Demon Slayer won't be copy striking that. She then tries to attack him several times, but Fudu parries all her strikes with his kicks. She then continues to attack her and manages to slice his shirt a bit, and Fudu asks if she is going after his head or his nipples. Rin says that he doesn't need them anyway, and he replies that he needs them for his nipple wrestling championship at New Year's. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Having enough of this comedic conversation, Rin decides to become serious, and she uses her hidden technique, Carpenter's Square. Her naming sense is as good as the Straw Hats. She manages to slice Fudu's face as he barely manages to dodge back and save losing his head. He notices that she is using an 8-sun sword and becomes excited. He decides to respond to her equally and takes out his metal-plated battle gloves. After that, they both start exchanging blows as he blocks her strikes with the back of his hands and pushes her back with his palm strikes. With less than 5 minutes left till homeroom ends, Rin goes for another hidden technique and starts attacking him rapidly by pushing him back against a tree and striking him hard continuously. Fudu blocks all of her strikes with his punches as fast as Muhammad Ali's and then falls forward in an effort to strike her from the side. He places his hand on the side of her stomach and then unleashes his own secret technique, the Spirit Bullet, which sends Rin back flying and defeats her. He walks up to her and tells her to guess the name of his technique, but Rin remembers the Empress's warning and gives him the correct name. This makes Fudu worried, and he gets on top of her and asks her how she knew. Just then, Rin's friend Nono runs in and hits Fudu from behind in an attempt to get him off Rin, but instead makes him fall forward and they both end up kissing each other like Naruto and Sasuke. Fudu jumps back and Rin becomes really mad at him for doing this to her. She then starts chasing after him, and Fudu thinks how he will get the permit to leave school grounds from her and the rest of the Supreme Swords. The following night, while taking a bath, Fudu notices that he hurt his foot during his fight with Rin. He also becomes good friends with the Buddha statue guy and asks him about the school grounds leaving permit, and he tells him that he will need the permit card from the leader of the Supreme Five Swords, Rin, and get individual approval seals from all 5 members as well. Fudu thinks that it's going to be hard given what he did to Rin, but decides to not give up on his dream of living a free life here just yet. He asks the guy about how he can order things from outside, and he tells him that there are some smugglers or bunkers who can get him his stuff if he pays them good enough. Fudu thinks up a plan and decides to order a box of cakes. The next morning, he goes back to the class and asks around about Rin. He finds out that she got a cold and is resting in her dorm room. He finds out about her room from the fat-faced Buddha guy and then sneaks in to meet Rin. Meanwhile, Rin is acting all mad and excited due to losing to Fudu, as well as him pinning her down and stealing her first kiss. She refuses to acknowledge her feelings, but it is apparent that she likes Fudu. Just then, she hears a knock on her door and she responds by picking her sword up and taking a stance. Fuduo speaks from behind her window and then jumps in and tells her to calm down. He gets real close to her and says that she is really burning, and then says that she is actually really cute. Hearing this, Rin becomes really shy and awkwardly accepts the compliment. Fudu says that he came to visit her with these cakes when he heard that she was sick, and then asks about the permit card. Rin tells him to not push his luck as they only give these cards to the students with great morals. But turns out Fudu is actually a sly Chad who knows how to use his riz. He notices that Rin is acting shy in front of him and says that he would have liked to see her in casual clothes. Rin thinks about the idea and gives in to her feelings and gives him the card with her stamp. She says that she will give it to him as thanks for checking up on her, and Fuduo says that he's really grateful and can even repay her with more kisses. Hearing this makes Rin burn out of shyness, and Fudu walks forward to catch her from falling. Just then, Nono walks in and sees Fudu and starts chasing after her with her weapon while calling him a pervert. On his way out, Fuduo is attacked by the younger sister of another Supreme Swords member, Choka. Nono also catches up to them, and they all engage in a 2-versus-1 battle. Nono uses a disciplinary staff, while Choka uses a whip as her weapon. Fudu equips his gloves as well, and they all start fighting. He tries to attack Nono first, but she parries his blow and pushes him back with the same fighting style as Rin. Meanwhile, Choka backs her up with some whiplashes. Fudu thinks that he has played with them enough and then makes Choka grab Nono with her whip and then shoots Nono back into Choka with a spirit bullet. The whole school witnesses their embarrassing defeat and brands Fudu as a cruel pervert. After school, he meets up with Rin, who gives him the stamped permit card, and Fudu tells her to recover quickly and come back to school as it's too boring without her. The following morning, he enters the classroom only to be greeted by Rin and her sword again. He asks her what's up, and she says to not act friendly with her, and then explains that for the sake of maintaining order in the academy, she has decided to supervise him from now on. Later that night, Choka complains to her elder sister, Mary, and Nono reports to Rin about Fudu assaulting them. Mary decides to punish him while Rin follows him to his dorm to wake him up early and start supervising him. The next day, Rin walks to the classes with Fudu and asks him about the rumors that he assaulted Choka and Nono. He explains what happened and apologizes for causing a misunderstanding. She understands the situation and says that she will be keeping an eye on him so it never happens again. On their way, they are confronted by Mary and Choka, who want to punish Fudu. But Rin says that it was a misunderstanding and she won't allow any punishments. Mary doesn't like this idea and she starts fighting Rin over it. Fudu takes this chance and slips away with his thick manga book under his shirt. Choka follows him and starts attacking him with her whip. But Fudu simply grabs the whip and snatches it away. He then realizes that his belt was loose, and Choka collapses after accidentally witnessing his Mount Fuji. Just then, He turns around and finds a familiar face standing on the stairs in the distance. He remembers that it is Amu from his old school who once defeated him in a fight. Turns out, after her transfer here, she defeated Rin and Mary in a 2-versus-1 battle and became known as the Empress at the Academy. Fudu calls out to her and asks her if she remembers him. She tells him to come again some other time, as she needs to prepare first before facing off against him. Fudu decides to run towards her to punch her anyway, but is interrupted by Mary, who comes there after defeating Rin as she is still recovering from her illness. Amu runs away with this distraction, and Fudu and Mary start fighting each other. Mary wields her rapier masterfully in a French-Japanese mixed sword style and manages to stab Fudu a lot of times. Fudu tries to lane against her, but her poking is just as annoying as Fiora's, and soon he falls down to his knees. He tries to counterattack her many times, but she always stops him midway with her sword and manages to keep him at a distance while constantly poking him back. With things looking bad for him, Fuduo decides to bait her and starts charging towards her. Mary thinks he has lost his mind and decides to finish him off with a strike through his chest, but to her surprise, instead of hitting his chest, the attack is blocked by the thick manga that Fudu has been hiding under his shirt all this time. After realizing what just happened, Mary steps back to put some distance between them, but Fudu counters her by hitting her head with the book and then strikes her down with a spirit bullet. After getting defeated, Mary wonders what vulgar thing he will do to her, like he did with Rin and Choka, but Fudu shows no interest in her and proves that he is actually a Sigma male. He then asks her for her stamp on the permit card, and Mary realizes that Fudu is actually a decent guy. Just then, Rin also arrives, and Mary says that she will be supervising him from now on as well.